Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Public Square, a UNC podcast. We are broadcasting live from Grand Central in Shoguna's UNC headquarters, and we want to welcome you. This is the third in a series of podcasts that we'll be carrying out throughout 2026. We started on election night, the second one in December. This is the third installation. We want to welcome all of you across the globe, across the country who's watching, and you can share the link. We are streaming live on unctt.org and UNC YouTube. My name is Jerome Lewis, your host tonight. And on the set with us, as usual, we have Professor Selwyn Cudjoe, scholar and writer, academic, who's here to always share his thoughts with us. We have Dr. Kirk Meighoo, another local writer, and he's also the public relations officer for the United National Congress. So basically, we're kind of going through some of the current events and analyzing what's going on across the country. But just before we get to them, I just want to give my take on one of the hot button issues I think that's out there. Now, within recent days, a lot has been said about the PM's language in the public sphere. There is a view that she needs to use appropriate language. Some refer to it as too brutal, not statesmanlike. But where you stand on the spectrum will determine what is appropriate. For the PM, she's standing as leader of a nation that's structurally unsound. Her policies and ideas do not align with the existing system. This collision has become a confrontation between her and big business over the 99%. And folks, just take, for example, the Flavor Village and the John Cupid Village at the Queen's Park Savannah. Every night, thousands converge to celebrate the nation's biggest festival. Once these villages ignite by evening, Arapita Avenue is empty. St. James is empty. But the small man, whether it be the vendor, the performer, the entertainer, or the watcher, is at the savannah. This is more than just a gathering. It represents the vision of KPB to bring for the first time entertainment to the nation without having citizens dig deep into their pockets to pay for it. It can cost up to $800 per event or more to see 2 to 3 of the big acts. Now, it's within walking distance. Vendors don't have to compete with the corporate giants to make a profit. That too is within walking distance. As the Express editorial puts it, it's an overwhelming success. So while her detractors are focused on her language, her policies and ideas are spoken in a tone that seems acceptable by all. That's just my take on what I think has been going on out there in terms of the Prime Minister and what she's saying. I think that she's not being politically correct about all of the things that are going on in the nation. So some people may be offended by it, some people may not like it, but at the end of the day, she has to deal with reality and what is on the ground. Meighoo, what do you think?
Yeah, basically, we are in a system that has been dysfunctional and malfunctional for decades. And people are comfortable with it and they're used to it. And her language is a method of shaking people up, of making them step back and try to question things because and because if we keep going along and working with the
Yep.
system as it exists, we will not make the jumps that we need in national development. And that's my take.
Yeah, Professor Cudjoe is also on set with us, and I know he has a view on how the nation should be functioning. I mean, we talk time and again, and he has his own take. Professor, when you look at um, how the entire system of government, sometimes you come in as a new government and you have to do things differently. And in a lot of instances, particularly now, you have this pushback. You think there's a right way and a wrong way to really deal with that in terms of language and how you address it?
Well, I think language is important. So we can't get away from that. Almost we are a young democracy. In fact, we're just how many years old? About 50 years. So we've opted to follow through or go through the system which we inherited from the British. We have not even changed that very much.
Right.
What I find interesting is that, for example, the nature of our government is such that the Prime Minister selects a president. It's a political act. A government selects a Chief Justice, a political act. That's the nature of the system. Either you accept it or you don't accept it. Either you do like in the States and says every office must be elected. The people directly will select every position.
Right.
Or you say the same British thing, that of course what we will do, we allow the parties who win the elections to have that kind of power. That's the first thing you have to decide. Do you find that acceptable or non-acceptable? If you say that's acceptable, then it seems to me what you have to do is then work within those lines. Because it has to be what they have in Britain, a certain what we call conventions. Nobody lays it down. If you lose the election or you make a silly statement, the person gets up out of his seat because he recognizes he's offended. But I said the British democracy, or whatever you call it, has been hundreds of years old. America, we are 20, 50 years old.
Yep.
And it seems to me either, for example, in terms of your senators, and the president and senators, I don't know what all that means. All it really means is, when we had our convention at Marlborough House in '62, the idea was, and I think for a large part, that the Indians were afraid that given a black government, they will not get what they wanted by bias. Mm-hmm. In fact, Ruth Nat Capaldi, and my man has written a wonderful thing about Ruth Nat Capaldi, you must read it, said, okay, we want certain protections. And what Williams did, he put in the minority clauses that says these things. But 1962 is not 1926. And things have changed. So either you accept that, because it goes with a certain amount of, I said, these are conventions, it's accepted by the body politic, etc. So I think one has to respect that. As much as perhaps, and she is, and the whole I was at the village and so on, that you're fighting against forces which you think are recalcitrant forces, to use somebody else's language whom we know. How do you deal with that? And I think it's incumbent, no matter how much you are against what's going on, there has to be a respect for the other parties. If you don't do that, you break down the democracy. We have to be, in other words, there seems to be that there has to be that. Yes, whether they're independent or not independent, you could look at the record and say, well, and see you, that's part of your position, Mr. Meighoo, and they voted in certain kinds of way. But at what point and how do you determine independence? They're not independent because they're selected by the president. I mean, you can't, then of course everything goes. But the question, what constitutes? And where in fact they do not vote and they vote in certain kinds of ways, we have to get a way to talk about it. But I think language is very important. And you see it, for example, a guy like Trump. The stock market dropped by 800 points yesterday because he wants to take over Greenland. And he had immediately change over his system within a day. He said, okay, I didn't really mean that. Because language matters. And when it talks about how we respect points of views, I think we have to be careful. So I think that my take would be
Yep.
inherent in all of that is how we organize our political democracy. And perhaps that's really where the real cutting stone lies.
But sometimes, Professor, you really politicians like really operating in a limited space, right? You have 5 years. You have to get certain things done. And the pushback sometimes can be so extreme. You're
What
trying
pushback
to
are you
do
talking about?
well, pushback from some of the forces. I mean, you just look at our system. Sometimes just to
I mean,
get
announcing the John Cupid,
Yep.
I think got booze, right? I mean, so I just even something
But-
as
but I mean,
small, they've
just-
been trying to push back.
outside of that, just sometimes, Professor, to get like someone has work in the public service and they have a contract that's maybe expired and they have to get a sometimes it takes months for them to have just to find out if they going to get 6 months, they're going to get a year, 2 years, if they're going to be temporary, short term, long term. The entire structure that we have, which you say, yes, is democratic, but the regular person to get anything done in this place is a hassle. And how we know that? You always have to be operating with connections. You have to know somebody to get something in a state institution. You got to have a contact to get some kind of documentation to the top, which should be normal procedure in a functioning democracy. Normal procedure. Everything has to be a contact list or someone. And the question arises, gentlemen, as to whether or not that frustration really, and the limited time you have to try and make changes within the system, could really cause you to have that kind of forceful language, even though at the same time you're protecting the democracy. What do you think?
Well, there is a fine line, right? And what I think Kamala Prasad Bissessar is doing is she is walking that line, right? So because she realizes, I think she realizes the time she has on the stage and what she needs to accomplish and what she sees can be done. Now, anybody can't speak and use the language that she has done. She can only do so because she has tremendous support behind her that she and which she won. So she has created an entire political base that has then who wants change and who has empowered her to be aggressive and and as I said, there was patient political building that has now given her political capital and license to push, because other people may have tried to push like that and doesn't budge or it breaks, right? So, but she has not hit those walls. She is pushing forward and getting success. I think she's extremely wise and calculated on what she's doing, and she's testing the limits in order to move as fast as possible.
Go ahead, Professor.
No, the fact of the matter is, and she said, I think I had a conversation, she knows she has a limited time. We've got 5 years.
That's right.
You got to set an agenda. You want to get things done. It has to be moving. So there's a sense of anxiety, I think. There's always a sense, I go by the whole notion of Hindu life, that last five, the youth life, you go to family. And she knows, and she feels it. I have a limited, both physical and otherwise. You have a limit and you have to get things done. And so there's anxiety, you want to break boundaries, and you want to make your name. I'm not going to make the mistakes I made 10 years ago. I'm not going to do it again. And therefore, I have to be forceful if it means cutting people down. For example, you have some ministers who don't even think they got to follow what she says. This is almost, I'm going back to, they're almost like albatrosses around people's necks. I'm using metaphors that we know of the past. So no, I understand.
And then it brings up the question, Professor, about what's the use of being politically correct? Look at the opposition.
I don't want to use, I don't like that language, that politically correct. It doesn't help us. We're in a practical...
You mean polite? Is that what you mean?
He's saying politically correct. Don't tell him what to like. Don't try to help him out. Don't help him out.
Politically correct.
Let him
the leader of the opposition, Professor,
the leader of the opposition is going to.
Politically correct.
They're going to lead the opposition.
I'm just saying, and that takes her nowhere.
I don't know that she's politically correct. I think you have to be... No. I think...
And KPB is not.
You want to...
she calls it as she sees it.
Wait. The difference between Kamala Besessa and the leader of the opposition is one of intellectual depth and substance and experience.
Of course.
And a history of struggle.
So you see politics in a different way. Not that she's politically correct and all that stuff. She doesn't know what to say. You see the part
Caution.
Not caution.
Yeah, she's very cautious.
I don't think it's caution.
You don't think it's caution?
It's not caution.
Of course it is.
But you could say that.
It is
It's
caution,
not caution.
because
It's
trying
not
to
a
avoid...
calculated caution.
I disagree with Tuyo.
But hold on, Professor, hear this. A lot of it has to do with caution in trying to avoid race.
No.
Avoid?
Yes.
I don't know if she's trying to avoid
Jerome.
it.
Listen. The PNM find itself in a dilemma.
Yes.
You betrayed your people, and now you got to say, how do I now get back? What issue do I take up to get back in the ring? Mandani had a position, affordability. You can mobilize people around affordability. And in that year, they won so many different seats even because they had a position around which people could generate and could generate.
He won Trump support.
All right, now. The PNM finds itself in a position where, first of all, they don't have the people with the capacity and ability to articulate a position. What are they going to run on?
That's right.
Radar and Tobago?
That's
Nobody cared about Radar and Tobago?
That's what they did run on, and what did
No,
they get? They got zero.
So you can't talk about radar. You have to
Exactly.
realize, you have to mobilize people around ideas. What Kamala has done, she's mobilized people in her own brash way around ideas, and has the audacity to say, I'm going to try and get it done because I promised it. That's right. That is direction, that is conviction, and that's bold-facedness, badassness.
Yeah.
This, in all due respect, I have great respect for the leader of the opposition.
Benny Beckles.
But it's a question of intellectual depth of experience, so you know where you're going. It cannot be. Give me an example. That, of course, we raise the money on wrong. And they say, no, we have a problem because we can't go and drink on a Friday night. Now, where is the substance? What is that?
That's right. It's so
It's
inconsistent.
So don't think about politically correct and all that.
right.
But it's not about that. It's not knowing and not having done the work and having lost out. What are you going to tell black people now if we accept the fact that PNM is primarily black people and a lot have moved over to the UNC, both in Tobago and so on? They're gone. They're gone out the track. They're gone. Your thing is, how do I mobilize them and become an effective leader that speaks to some general principle? That is what they're searching for, number one. And number two, Imbud can't do it. Alwari can't do it. The fellow who talked about this. No, I want the fellow from Aruka, Bonnie, what do you mean? Marvin. They have,
cannot do it.
There's a lack of depth. So it's not politically correct. It's the absence of knowledge and
I
sensibility
think it's
and experience.
a combination of it.
Well,
Even when they have issues to talk about being very cautious. But
Cautious.
we are taking a break. This is the public square, taking the first
It's
break.
not
And we-
cautious. I want to get it out of it. I want to get out of the head. It's not caution.
It is
It's
a
not.
part of caution.
It's not
emptiness.
no. It's emptiness.
Well, it's a combination of emptiness. But, Professor, okay, the producer says no break, so we're going straight. Tobago, when you look at it, Tobago, 14-1 come back to 15-0. I mean, what do you think about that?
And let's even step back.
Yes.
6-6 to 14-1
Yeah.
to 15-0.
When I look back at that, Eddie Hart.
Even though the analysts were telling us 5 seats
Forget the
going
analysts.
this way,
I don't like
right?
the analysts.
Yeah.
Get me wrong.
and then when you win,
They have no depth.
they change the
They
whole
have-
dynamic of what the outcome should be.
They have no depth. They just talk nonsense. Because my thing, just one punch, Eddie Hart, who just died, an icon and so on. And the day Eddie Hart died and was put on the ground is the same day that Pinham was buried in Tobago. The dead had gone down.
That's it. See,
It's buried.
you
It's
see
gone.
there was a correlation
It ain't
between
no, it's a correlation. Even a
Between Eddie-
even a
between Eddie-
even a causation. The fact of the
Between-
matter is, we do not look
Yeah.
at facts in terms of real politics, not sentimentality.
And you know they had all the big guns from Trinidad.
Oh, yeah.
But that was a
Was
mistake.
on the ground, right?
Even that is a mistake. I spoke on a Tobago platform 5 or 10 years. Tobago doesn't like to hear no Trini on the platform.
And,
Just in real
the-
politics.
The campaign was, it made no sense. Tobago first. A PNM saying a Tobago first.
No,
public.
what they did, while there was an election, let money talk when there was anything. So they have a lot of money. And a lot of riches. I told you about Cummins and Alwari. So they have a lot of money. They're making money, but they can't make politics.
Yeah.
Because they spend the time making money
That's it.
and not talking and making politics. They're dead in the sense that what has happened, I think the major transformation, we have to see this dialectically and philosophically. There's a transformation that's taking place in these two islands. That the party which has ruled us has betrayed us in all kinds of ways. You want to be politically correct, and you go to, what is that from Mora, where Mr. Browley book is from? What hill?
Mason Hall.
So
In Mason Hall, how many said vote? 70% of the
Exactly.
people vote against you. What did you tell me about?
And he's a wee boy.
And he's a wee boy. What I'm saying, he would walk through the airport with his head up in the air and speak to nobody because they were, all right, that's nice. But people, politics is about people speaking and making their decisions. I remember that American thing, when they were all on camera case about America, and she say this and she say the other. Real politics. What is she supposed to say? Well, Miss America, I don't want you. Hey, they don't care what you say. They're going into Venezuela. If they got to use international waters or our waters, we're going to get rid of Maduro. But I don't care what Mr. MSC, Mr. What his name is? David, Mr. MSC now, the guy who's in front of
yeah,
Oh,
the five
MSJ,
people,
MSJ.
MSJ,
five
and
people,
and
five
the
protesters.
animation
Yeah.
support.
Yeah.
The population said nothing.
That's right.
They were speaking. You don't really speak by going in. You
Yes.
also speak in different ways. And they were saying, listen, we don't care about that because we know a lot of goods and services go there. All right? That saying something was always enfeebled. In fact, I got in a big conversation with a great PNM fella who talked about a principle. And principle. Who wants that? What's this principle thing about? And I think you may disagree. We're working on old paradigms and old notions of statehood and sovereignty, etc. Those are all. The Caribbean is a sea of a zone of peace.
A sort of peace.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
These were always fictions.
Not even fictions. They're just cliches.
That's right, yes. And they were never real. And it's something that people agreed to say, but did not reflect
They
reality.
don't understand. They look at Mr. Trump as dumb as he is. He's going back to the old spheres of influence. The Monroe Doctrine is 1835, where they say, hey, this belongs to we, or don't come down here. These are spheres, and they articulated that a few weeks ago in the declaration they talk about their policy. Russia like that because Russia say, hey, all right, you could do a thing. I want to
A sphere.
I want to put back the old Soviet USSR, of which Ukraine was a big piece.
Yeah.
I taken that.
And then you
They
have
like
China.
that. And then
Yeah,
China say,
Taiwan
oh, could be.
is- yes.
So in other words, the world has changed. And then I want to say it, tired cliches are going to get you nowhere. You got to think anew about your new reality.
That's
so it
right.
comes down, 75 countries. You saw that thing?
Yeah, with the visas.
Everybody get jammed.
Except
Everybody get jammed. In other words,
Yes.
it's just,
Yeah.
it's just
Every continent.
It's just common. In other words, politics
But-
is the art of the possible
Possible.
and understanding what your reality is at a particular time and acting or not acting accordingly.
You know, gentlemen, Professor, let me ask you this. You know, and you talk about the transformation, you know, how the nation is moving from this old paradigm and things are much different at this time. But you know, in Trinidad, you don't really hear, I mean, people talk, but only when something is happening. But how you see this transformation going forward now in terms of the government dealing with crime, trying to introduce special zones after the SOE, and you know, just dealing
Oh, I see that.
across the board
We into-
with everything.
We into BS. I had that conversation with somebody else. Zones of this, and we don't want to have this, and everything they're against. The fact of it is, and I was talking about at UTT, we had a meeting today in UTT, and I had a talk about we trying to bring in some new, change it around, new programs and so on and so forth.
And just before you go to the answer, but I want to put it in the context of these special zones and what is being talked about as to whether or not
It's against African people. Say it now.
it's
and apartheid.
Say
And they
it.
use
And
the
apartheid. Does
word
everybody want to say?
apartheid.
not just against African people, but the evidence shows that the constituencies with the highest
My friend,
number of
My
individuals
friend,
involved in
my
this
friend.
is in the opposition.
I keep saying to you,
Right.
it's real politics. Forget this, and I'll come back to the zones. Before the elections, the worst performing schools was in the Panama areas.
Yep.
You gonna bring Kamala for that?
The crime.
You-
yeah. But everything.
The thing is, the reality. Yes,
Yes.
I black. My hair gray. I'm not see
We could see it.
No, don't say that.
We could,
Don't say that now.
we could see it. We could bring some just for men for you. But go ahead. Yes.
And we know
Yeah.
that in spite of all of the money we've put in the police and all that kind of stuff, the conditions have gotten worse. Even today, in terms of people breaking into people's homes, people are not safe. And your point, even though you bring down the crime, people still do not feel
Yeah.
that is safe. You spent a lot of money, but the crime kept going up. All right? And people wherever you live were in jeopardy, and you have to acknowledge that. How then do we deal with it? You have an SOS, and it brings down a state of emergency, SOE, and it brings down the crime in certain kinds of ways because you give powers to the police, etc., etc. Now, you move into the next phase. Do you just simply go back to how things were?
Exactly.
Or do you say, listen, there's certain areas, zones of,
Special operations.
I know, but it's zones
Those are
of,
special operations.
Zones of peace. Zones of.
zones of wars, domestic war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can't go back the same way. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna get rid of the state of emergency, I suspect,
yeah.
and then what we will do is in Jamaica.
That's right.
And they said it was taken from Jamaica because Jamaica depends upon tourism. Jamaica and the crime rate high. But they know in certain areas you can't have crime because ain't nobody coming. It means food for people.
And
so what we are saying, as the UNC are saying, is that we have to keep that pressure up.
Exactly.
And if the way of keeping the pressure up is to carve out certain areas and give special kinds of suspend certain civil, etc., to cover 2 blocks
For 24
or
hours.
3 blocks, go up to 70,
Yeah,
72,
it
up to
could,
70,
yeah.
up to 72,
But in
up
the
to
first
72,
instance, yeah,
up to 72.
up to.
What is wrong in heaven now? We know, And I saw a big debate. I saw Khan, I think, said about 2 days ago in the papers about Africans and these things happening Africans, and that the crime are among African people and so on. And if there is a maybe correlation and coincidence, correlation or causation, we're not going to go into that. But it so happens. What we must do, and so we say, listen, we want to keep this momentum going. And one way to do it is to target the areas where it's happening. If it ain't happening in, I guess, La Brea or something, okay. But if it happens in certain areas, we must have, first of all, agility. We must have the ability to go in there and stop it or interrupt it before it happens.
And that's what the victims are as well.
So that is not racism.
Yeah.
That is, we are always looking for that cap.
Yeah. And about taking from Jamaica, we had a remarkable 42% drop in murders in 2025. But Jamaica had a 43% drop, and they had no state of emergency. It was because they had the special zones, the zones of special operations.
Because they know that the economy
we are so proud of the 42%, rightly so. And then when we saw the Jamaica figure 43, that was impressive, and so we had to take a look at what were they doing, and this is what they were doing.
And the argument is not political correctness. It's not is a lack of understanding of the body politic and how things happen. That's a radical misunderstanding or lack of understanding. What we do, I go back to the radar. Oh, we have a thing. Remember when Williams gave this lecture many years ago and he said that they had in Chaguaramas,
the UN Chaguaramas,
and they had something
from slavery
and
to Chaguaramas.
he did a thing where they were doing something at the base. Right. What was it? They had oh God, but people didn't understand what it was because we didn't know what it was, and nobody followed him on that. What I'm saying, Jerome, that I think we have to dig deeper into how people are acting. I think fundamentally, people are seeing the politics differently. They understand that we've been failed. I don't want to go back. They're dead. Let me bury them. And say, listen, how do we deal with the problems that confront us?
That's right.
How do we deal with this crime? People go into people's homes, or you call this invasion, home invasions. Yeah. And you saw in the paper in San Fernando, a man yesterday morning, for example, they think he was driving a taxi, they killed him, and they come back last night, and he and his son and the dog, organized the fella, took care of business. So I think what we have to understand, all of us, both at the level, both the PNM and the UNC, now, we may have, and I'm not trying to give us any great whatever, but as people who deal, an intellectual or people whose work is about reading and writing. That's your work. There's nothing superior about that. That's what we do. And we may have the capacity to put in words or statements what is happening in ways that the ordinary person don't. And so when we see these transformations, things are going differently. People are feeling differently. And so what you have is a rearrangement, a realignment, not based on race, but based on people's best interests. At the end of the day, your concern is what your interest is. And to the degree that we in the UNC understands and try to speak to that. Now I'll give you a little points. Maybe sometimes the language has to be harsh, That might be so. But the point is, we must understand there is a change. There is a transformation. And of course, the moribund is a nice word. Yeah. The moribund sometimes go down and fail and so on, and the new springs up. That was Hegel in his dialectics, right? That the old goes and the new bursts forth. So the point is really that we have change, and unfortunately, sometimes it takes a while before the change catches up with others. And I think we're going in the right direction. I think UNC is going in the right. But we also must not ever give up the right to be critical and self-critical within our own organization. Once you say that, then you have problems. But as far as what we're doing, I think that we're doing a good job. And you see it in kinds of ways in terms of we did not necessarily know how the world would turn out. 10 years or 5 years ago, we didn't know anything about Greenland. But we didn't know what was going to happen.
Yeah.
We didn't know talk was going to talk that stupidness and so on. And then it turns out that you're impeccably correct because you get away.
Yeah.
But it's not simply getting away. It's a sense of a sight or foresight, insights that one has as leaders and people. You have that. Sometimes you don't know how to articulate it. You act in certain ways because you're acting in the country's own best self-interest. And that's what bugged me in the papers again. That they always want to say what somebody else say. What Venezuelans say this weekend too. What Venezuelans say and what so and so. Never what we are saying.
Exactly.
We are the government. You represent us in your papers. Our views, our government's views must come first.
Correct.
And the side of the paper put what everybody else is saying. So I think, but it takes a while. Part of the problem too, it takes, in terms of people's own psychology, it takes a while to get used to new formation and a new way of doing things because it's new. And you're sort of, I wouldn't say, you can't say Eurocentric, but certain kind of view has shaped in your head, and that is being dismembered. That's consciousness.
Yeah.
And so it takes a while before that is broken down. And I think what has happened, that is taking place. Now, in a year or two, as we look at the measures, you may see yet another change.
Kind
in
of
that.
dynamic change.
But the point is that I think we're in a new space, really. I think we're in a new space.
Absolutely.
And that a new way of understanding our social environment, a new way of understanding who we are, and that takes a while before that comes into being. So that's what we see.
Well, when you look, Professor, at Dr. Meighoo, you know, the government changes, last year, maybe within 8 months or so, right? And, we've had a long, many years of PNM rule. Country ran a certain way. And when you look now at the trajectory, how we moving forward, yes, you have some backlash, some pushback here and there and so forth. And Professor just mentioned that it's gonna take a while. You think, like now you see a little more coming together, people much more accepting, look, yeah, maybe this is the way we should be. We should be going, even though it's the UNC government than before.
What has killed a lot of
To
things?
2010.
What has killed? I forget 2010. What has killed and the big
We
difference?
can't forget 2010.
Well, I'm gonna tell you why.
Can't forget 2010.
Well, okay, remember 2020. Okay, remember it.
You're going to tell
Remember.
them,
Okay,
forget your
remember
birthday
it.
last year.
Oh, remember
Yeah.
it. And if you want
That's
that-
important because it was very different.
Okay,
Yeah.
remember it. I have to keep your point.
We have to keep 2010.
Keep it. But the critical difference is that there is no money in the treasury.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference. People cannot conceive that.
Yeah.
They figure still they want to get this and get jobs and so on. And somehow the government has sort of failed you. The critical difference in terms of 2010, which you want to remember, and 2025, the treasury is literally dry. They're trying to their best. Some of the fines and the fees and that we don't have any money, and that makes a big difference. However ambitious you might be, you got to cut and squeeze and so on. And I think the critical, one of the things we got to get, I think, if in terms of advice, I would say that we have to bring it home to people. We have no money. People call you up for jobs and say, well, I can't get that job and so on. What are you paying them with? In our place of duty, a 24 million deficit. Well, forget Carl Lott. We don't have the money. And so therefore, I don't think we've done a good job. And who's the people who are supposed to? Oh, Mr.
A good job in what? In what?
In explaining that.
In explaining that.
Yeah, but Professor, I don't agree with you. It will take time for the country to recognize what you're talking about. That is, we don't have the money. I'll tell you this. For years, this place has run in a way in which we talk about, big business, but most of the business in Trinidad is buy and sell.
Yeah.
They own a car company. They rent the cars. They bring it in with foreign exchange. They sell it. We're not into manufacturing business in terms of creating the kind of jobs that we're supposed to be creating. Everything was buy and sell. Now with the lack of the foreign exchange and then no money in the treasury, those businesses on a standstill, so they have no creativity, even in the private sector.
And I think
So-
there are a couple of things we need to talk about that because while we
Because
have to
you're in
face
trade,
that
right?
reality, well, yeah,
Yeah, you in trade. So
and
tell us.
but so yes, that is the reality at the moment, and people have been wrongly saying that things like traffic fines are how we're trying to raise revenue. That is not it at all. As we have a delegation from the United Arab Emirates coming to look into investing in Trinidad and Tobago after the roadshow done by Minister Jerlene John. This blueprint,
Yep.
this massive transformation blueprint is that is our revenue generation model. Reopening Petrotrin, and then also this is in the budget, but not given the profile it should. The state enterprises sector is projected to earn 350% more revenue. So in other words, we're going to make the state sector make us money, not lose us money. 5 billion per year, right? And then of course, well, did I say reopening Petrotrin? That's another one as well, because that's why we're in the foreign exchange crisis we're in, because of the short-sightedness of closing down Petrotrin. The Exxon is just starting its seismic survey now. They just sent out the
Yep.
Exxon's back here after 20 years, right? They're exploring the deep sea, the deep water, and that could put us at Guyana level, or at least in the periphery of there.
Right,
I mean,
and all of
there's
this,
a bright
all of this
future
is
here.
gonna take time, for it to happen. But it's gonna happen at some point. But the thing is, I wanted to point out, Professor, is that
you're
a
not responding
lot.
to my question.
What's
Will
that?
it happen 10 years from now and so on? I'm saying part of the difficulty
is to understand
Is
the
that
transition.
and most importantly, to
Yep.
argue and to speak the fact we do not have the money.
But
Okay, well, right. So we could say
it's
that, Professor, but then we
it's
have
much
to-
easier or not easier, but
Well-
it's better to say that in a context. It's not that we are permanently going to be in the state. We are getting out.
Well,
we are
well,
in the
Professor,
state,
the
and
country-
we are on our way out.
No, but I mean, Professor is doing it, saying it in the way that okay, we don't have the money, and that's it. But you still have to run the country, right? You have to
That's
pay
right,
salaries. You have to run your school, your UTT, buy
what's the point?
buy equipment. But I'm saying
I was-
that
you
that
said
that
we
the that the
must-
that the transition
You
will
said-
take
you
some time.
said no.
But it's not
No,
okay. We have no money and we leave it there.
We ain't got no money.
And we gotta understand
No, I'm gonna
that.
leave it there.
Well,
But my point is,
Yeah.
you went. You see, you kind of forget.
So you gotta
I'm
have the
old.
help. Yes.
I'm old.
And
you
as
took us
chair
back.
of
Let us
TTT.
think. Let us think about.
You're just more mature than us.
You says, let us think about 210. And I'm saying the substantive difference between 210 and 2025, we ain't got no money. That's my point I'm making. Not that we will not or we'll forever never have any money, or that these seismists they wouldn't take off, or that these people are just buying and selling. My only point is part of trying, are we talking transition?
Yeah.
We are talking about how we tell our followers who believe when UNC win, everybody wins. They throw it in my face all of the time that there's difficulty just in terms of jobs or salaries are thing by a week or two. And the fact is, if you want to be truthful with your population, at the end, I always bring up Stammer. Stammer last year won by a whole great majority. He in trouble now.
Every UK
But could you,
prime minister
we
says.
run,
I know, but
Professor, we ran almost 60 years.
What's that?
60 years
What's that?
with oil and gas. And it's just that some of it has come to an end.
I don't
So-
care.
Well,
It's
yeah.
not
So,
what
so what I'm saying, how much information you could put out there to tell people, well, we don't have money.
No, I know you have to say it. In other words,
Well, we keep saying it.
who says it?
I mean, we keep saying it.
All right, okay.
At
So the population knows.
At
So the population-
our ministry, right? At our ministry, which deals with a huge part of the population, because you're talking about carnival, a huge part of the, including UTT, all right? They know that if they had $10 last year or the year before, it comes down to 2 or to 3
Who knows
this
that?
year.
Who knows that?
But they know that.
Who's the they?
But it's groups.
Who's the
all
they?
the groups, Professor,
So they know.
involving mass, calypso, whatever, across the country. And these are the people who coming to the state for money. You're not talking to people who are not coming to the state. You're talking to the people who are affected first by the lack of cash, and to show them that, okay, yes, last year you had $10, this year it's going to be 5, and we have to try to still accommodate and do what we have to do, but it's going to be on a diminished budget to try and still keep things going
now you've been
until
able to over-deliver.
you have that transition.
And even with that limited budget, you've been able to deliver and over-deliver.
But you have to.
Yeah.
You have to. Because in Professor's case at UTT, can't close down the university because you don't have the cash. Maybe you could cut back on it. He's at Cal, you cut back on seats, you cut back on certain routes, etc., etc. And you restructure based on the fact that you don't have the kind of cash flow that was coming in as before. But the point is, you still have to continue to run the country. And Professor, one thing is, no matter how much information you put out, which we are putting out, the expectation is always high. People will still say, there's money. Because they're not informed about anything.
They're not informed. That's an interesting.
And more information ain't going to make them informed. They feel that somehow you're hiding a truth that is out there, that you're giving them less because you have it and you don't want to give it out, which is not what it is. So even in terms of mind conditioning, Professor and Dr. Meighoo, people still themselves have to adjust to the fact that it is reality that the money is just not there. And that has to soak into some people's heads.
Jerome.
There's no amount of information you could put out that's going to change that. None.
Is that right? So
Yes.
Information is not important. I disagree with you. I'll tell you why I disagree with you. Election, you make a pact with people. You make a pact.
Yes.
Inherent in any election, you make a pact.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out, in reality, people, you're close to the action. You're close to the action. I am close to the action. We have facts that are coming through in terms of could be adumbrated at all points. We have that. The ordinary person says, we made a deal. When UNC wins, everybody wins. And expectations, you say, are very high. And the key to holding that coalition together is a sense of delivery. That's why Kamala did the deal with the 10%. Mm-hmm. No matter how bad it is, there has to be your word is your bond. People feel that way. And if they feel in terms of jobs, they're not getting jobs. They don't care or even know why they're not. There is an expectation because of that bond. And my simple point is, in terms of keeping the coalition together, you have to seek ye understanding. That's what the Bible says. Seek ye, and you're going to have understanding by repeating. If you're a good teacher, you simply repeat and repeat so people knows what is happening. I am simply saying, I want to go back to your metaphor 210. He bring it up. You don't want to forget and remember. See, the point is that that's one of the critical differences in terms of streams of income, money's coming in, etc., and the lack thereof today. And so it seems to me that is a major reality that has to be explained in terms of trying to keep the bond feasant and rich and so people understand. I do not believe, unlike you, that people are stupid. Mm-hmm. People have basic common sense. As I said before, we can articulate, they may not articulate it. And I'm saying that they will understand. But you have to keep on saying it in a way that...
But keep on saying what? Cudjoe, Professor, when inflation goes up in a society, goes up, it's 2%, it goes up to 4%. Nobody goes out there with an ad and say, well, inflation is up, you're supposed to adjust your spending. You see it. The average consumer
But
sees it in the
inflation
grocery
has
that
gone
eggs
down.
gone up, chicken is going up, taxi fares have gone up.
But-
And they adjust, Professor, their own spending habits based on that. The point is, I hear what you're saying, but there's no way in any democracy that you can message to 100% out there to the masses that things are hard and therefore you ought to go a particular way. These things are adjusted, are adjusted in a metric way. So, for instance, at Cal where you are adjusting routes. We're not going to X route, Y route, C route. Baggage claims, we're gonna raise whether it's if you have an extra bag, we're gonna charge you 35 US, etc., etc. When they arrive at the airport, they know that maybe you put out your ad, whatever. But only people who are traveling are affected by an additional bag. If you're not traveling, you're not affected by it. So what I'm saying, Professor, is that across the society, is you could put all the information and the information is all there. But people themselves adjust their habits when they go out to either pay a taxi fare, the new school fee, they recognize that UTT cut some program or the fees have gone up for a program. They may say, okay, let me try something else, or let us see if we have some kind of financial arrangement with our credit union where we could do a portion of it, or the school itself might say, let us organize with one of the financial institutions for people who are borderline so that they could pay over time. That way you're doing that to try and keep people going. So I don't think it's a one and done of information and somehow because they're not stupid they're going to understand it. Yes, you have the information that's out there, but not everyone is going to grasp it as you might do or I might do, because we, as you rightly say, Professor, are very close to the politics and to these institutions. And we have to give the benefit of the doubt that not everyone out there, with the best intention, is going to understand it like you or myself. They're going to experience it in a much different way and adjust their lifestyle.
I think we we also need to recognize that the government, the Minister of Finance, in the budget, facing this crisis, did, one of the sub themes or the themes of the budget was talking about balancing, or was it rebalancing the burdens? Because in the last 10 years under the PNM, it was the general population that felt the brunt in terms of inflation, in terms of rising costs, in terms of rising fuel costs, and so not only was the $1
On the gas.
taken off the gas and so forth, but also when revenues did have to be raised through fees and levies, it was done with the mind where, let's say property tax versus the landlord surcharge. The property tax was going to be done on everybody, regardless if you were earning an income on your property or not. And what was perverse about it was that commercial properties were exempt, which makes no sense. And the thing of this government was, well, listen, if you are making an income from it, okay, well, we could put that on you because you are getting an income. Things like the NGC gas price, it's not electricity prices across the board. It's for, if you are making an income, all right, well, that's where we're going to have to go. And things like discretionary, discretionary levies and taxes, alcohol, cigarettes, where it's voluntary. Not everybody smokes and drinks, and you can. And
it only affects the smoker or the drinker.
And you can cut back. You don't have to have 5 packs a day or a pack a day or whatever it is. And so given these difficult choices that the government had to do, you know, they were very, very concerned that this it wasn't done across the board. It was done on revenue earners. It was done on discretionary taxes, and I think
Yeah.
that's very, very important to understand that a an excellent effort was made, and not just effort, that was the method that has been used.
And one thing I agree with Professor, right? I agree with him that with things have changed because we don't have the money. Quite correct. The same village, the John Cupid and the Flavor Village, right, was always free. We never had the kind of massive crowds as you have in 2026. And it's not because it's free too, because you know people don't have that kind of cash to go and buy a ticket for $800 or $1,200.
Right.
The majority of people to go and see an act, and they use that opportunity for entertainment for the
So
carnival.
why are you
etc.
saying it's more filled this year?
Because I'm saying that I agree with him, with Professor, that having no the country having this financial
Yeah.
strain have changed things,
Okay.
right? And I'm saying it was always free, but it didn't have the kind of huge turnout as you have this year, right? This overwhelming response. It's not just because you have the acts and so on. It's free, but I'm saying people don't have that 500 or 200 or whatever it is to go and pay to go to that fair, and they say, okay, we will take the entertainment and the enjoyment at the village.
And then the small entrepreneurs at the village, if I understood correctly, and you could tell me, the chairman Peter Canhai was saying that they were saying that in 1 week they made more money than they made in the entire.
Well, yeah, of
carnival
course,
season.
because you have, because I mean, people who come in would, participate, and then you didn't have the large corporate
Competition,
restaurant
yeah.
competition which you had before to take up. Because I mean, if you drop one of them KFC inside it, that's it.
Yeah.
You understand? So I mean, with that out, you have no choice but to
Yeah.
buy from the
and
local
and that's an amazing
100%
vision.
local.
I mean
Yeah.
that's very,
You see?
very important. It's entrepreneurship. It's
Yeah.
local culture. It's
Of course. So a lot of these habits in terms of how people gonna adjust their lives. Yes, they're gonna get the information, but people will adjust their lives as they go along. So gas going up by $1. Sometimes people might say, okay, I can put a little more in the car, but I am not driving too far distance. When the day comes, you might use more water taxi, you may use the bus, etc., etc., because you understand that the money is not there, you're not getting it in your pockets, and you have to adjust your lifestyle to suit so that you could still survive. So I think that's a key component of individual responsibility, as well, to manage your affairs, right? Now, Professor, I want to talk a little bit about, we touch on crime, we touch on the transformation of our politics, right? The nation building. I just want to talk a little bit about nation building. This new dispensation, you at UTT. What are I know you have always had this concern about, the university's role in the country to train local minds and to really be a national. You've always had this concern that of us having a national university. When you come out of it, you ought to know all our politicians, William C.L.R. James, Pandey,
writers,
an array of people, Lloyd Best, etc. Where you are at this point, how do we get to that in terms of, like, as a starting point to see we should be getting the university to begin that new trajectory for training nationals to really understand the history and Trinidad and Tobago, and not just doing regular academic work, all this, you have all this carnival studies and whatever. How are we really proceeding with that kind of stuff? Tell me.
Well, the first thing that we have done, and I shouldn't be announcing it here, it should be first sent to the Prime Minister and sitting the Minister in charge, so I wouldn't say that right now.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But the first thing you should do, the distinction I make, is first of all, the University of West Indies is a regional institution. As a regional institution, they speak to the entire Caribbean. And the one thing that every university student should have, and I think it started with John Campbell, is a course called Caribbean Civilization.
I used to lecture in that.
I used to lecture in that class. And the theory behind that is this. If you graduate from UWI, you should know the Caribbean. In other words, when I give you a degree that says that you have a BA, you all have BAs, and they say by the power conferred upon the state, you now whatever. A BA means that you now become what we call an educated person in a society. And so therefore you're expected to know what your society is. When I got to UTT a few months ago, the question is, and we had that discussion when we did the core curriculum at Harvard, about 1970, which was a part of. The question is, when you call somebody an educated Trinidadian, what is he or she really reasonably expected to know? You come, you say, I'm an educated Trinidadian. What are you reasonably expected to know? And the first question I asked, what is a course that everybody must take? And well, the idea was to take a course, entrepreneurship. Well, that is a non-starter in the sense that 23% of the institution are people in education. The people in engineering is about 8% or so and so. And I must say, we took it, we said, anybody who goes to UTT must take a course in the history and culture of Trinidad and Tobago. You must know what the Ramleelas are. You must know that Hussein is a theological
Shelter Baptist
and so on. So in other words, that if you're educated, you should know. More importantly, if you want to, and we had that discussion today, the first thing we're going to do, Aisha, we're going to have a major conference of what constitutes a national university. When we say UTT is a national, what do you mean by that? You've got to give it some meat. So that's the first thing, and I think that we have taken that in a really important way. For example,
but just before you go to that, when you say a conference, is it coming out of the conference you get some of the points to establish?
I don't know. What we're saying is that we're going to have a discussion.
You would invite
and we have
people
people talk, and we have to talk about it in a different way. But the other thing I'm saying is that UTT has done a very good job, which are not spoken of. People don't know what we do. For example, I want to give it a plug here.
Wasn't he just telling us that we're not doing a good job with the communication on the country has no money?
Yeah.
And you in UTT, and you're saying you have no communication as to not doing a good job?
Yeah, you just have it.
You indict yourself.
No,
but go ahead.
You have your talking points, so you're not thinking.
You indict yourself. You indict yourself, Professor.
But you're not thinking.
Please.
I got there 6 months ago. You ask me what I'm going to do. You have to forget, You ask me what we as a new board are going to
Professor,
do.
you can't spin that. You
It's
just
not-
indict yourself.
No, you
that
have it.
your
Repeat
own
it.
university
Repeat it and it becomes the truth. Go ahead, Mr.
don't
Trump.
have
Mr. Trump, repeat
the
it.
communication
Mr. Trump,
as
repeat
you could
it.
do.
I'm saying
Yeah.
that the university does a very good job, and I was going to give you an example. And the example is there is a museum now, I think it's a national museum, where on Sunday they presented, and I had to write the people in charge and congratulate them, something on having a National Institute of Calypso and Carnival, where they honored
David Rudder.
I know anybody heard about it.
I want to tell you that is produced by the NCC.
Together with UW or UTT.
Yes.
No, yes. It's together with, I don't understand how you guys.
Where's that what I
So-
eat
So let me
20%?
work together.
No. Now let's see. I know we joke about
Is it that
ev-
80-20%
everything
collaboration?
No, no, no.
the idea came up to honor these guys, and they turned to UGT because that's the kind of work we're doing in carnival studies. It's a manifestation of the work that's going on. But I want to say something a little more importantly. I've been to a lot of exhibits and so on throughout the world, and that's a first-class exhibit. But nobody knows about it. They do not speak about what they do. That's something we have to do much more. And so the question is, what are we doing about it? So we start that way. We're going to introduce a course in AI done by Dr. Lockhart and another guy, Dr. Ali, which of course is going to become a part. It's a course that everybody going to infiltrate every department. So again, you're thinking of the future. I could go, in other words, what we have to do is to try to make the school more relevant to what is being done, but more importantly, trying to play and do what we must do to make it more relevant. And more people must know about it. Last point, and I had to make that point in a meeting we had today. What does UTT stands for? Well, many people in their minds don't know. A last survey last week, I don't know if you saw that survey, which was ranking the universities in the world.
Right.
I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't see last week's one.
And Harvard was number one. But the next 9 universities were at Chinese University,
Right, okay.
in front of Stanford
I saw that,
and all
yes.
of those
I saw that,
places.
yes. Yeah.
Stanford and all Chinese at top 9. Harvard is the only one. So when you come out to UT and you show your degree, what does that mean? It must mean something to people.
Yeah.
And you must take pride in what you do. So what we are trying to do, if it's the only thing we did, brand it in a way that when you come out, you will know about your country. And they're working it out, and they're doing a very good job.
No, yeah, I just want to, you mentioned open AI, well, you mentioned AI. And I just saw something this evening on my way here, an announcement from the Ministry of Public Administration and AI, Minister Dominic Smith. He announced a partnership, a pioneering partnership between OpenAI and the ministry here in something called, and I don't know if you're aware about this, OpenAI's Education for Countries. And it's 6 pilot countries in the world: Estonia, Greece, Italy's Conference of University Rectors, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Slovakia, Trinidad and Tobago, and the United Arab Emirates. So I'm here on the OpenAI website here. It's really, really fascinating. So I don't know if what you're talking about is linked to this, but
No, it is linked because he's asking what we do, and I'm saying as we think into the future. The university is not about the past. And to the degree that that is going on there, we as the university is introducing that to all of our students. So to answer your question, so those are some of the things. The other thing which I found is that folks, for example, again, the UTT team, soccer team and women, they've qualified to play in one of the biggest tournaments of colleges throughout the world in Lima, Peru, in June. I mean, what an honor. What an honor. We have to do more publicity because we know those things are happening. So I think I'm not indicting myself. I'm being truthful. I'm saying that prior to, we have not done that. And that's what we must do in order to let us understand and appreciate what I think we're doing a good job, but we got to educate not only the local population in terms of the people you see, the entire country.
That's right.
So when you see you have a degree from, say, Harvard or Yale or UTT, it must mean something. And I think we must come to that point. So part of it is a kind of re-education. And I think people...
Professor, let's say, with this old financial strain, I mean, you have to pay for some of these, not for some, but for all these courses. And how you all are dealing with that? Is it that everybody, you get your money and you come and pay, or you're saying, well, okay, because of the financial strain, we're going to have maybe a package for people who might be? Is that the way it works, or everyone has to fend for themselves?
That's not the way it's
I think how we are thinking about it. We have not come with a position. The way we are thinking about it is that, first of all, that you have to attract more students to come to the university. I think prior to, we've depended too much on industries and how much rather than how good. So therefore your hands are tied. Also incidentally, that UDT is a limited liability company. It's not like universities, we know that it's a limited liability company which is still controlled by the government. So you got to get a situation where you could do more things, etc. But what has happened is that we have been lax. So I indict myself again. That, for example, we have, in terms of people who owe money to the institution, I've just gone and walked off. And some laugh at the things in like $24 million, which we try now, as we started.
To recover?
To recover, because you got to pay your money. All right? So that's one of the things. The second thing is that as Cal, we are trying to cut back in terms of lower our cost of operations by having to bring, we've saved, which I think the Prime Minister will be glad to hear, we've saved some money for our coming there from August, and we put that out, we're going to have a statement. We've saved some money, a few $1 million. And hopefully by the end of the year, and I want to give here publicly the president, the acting president, Arian Mahabir, who's done a fantastic job in terms of the work he does, this is the president. And everybody's chipping in and realize we're at a new phase. So we try to cut back in terms of your cost, your operational cost, of course, and of course be more efficient in what we're doing. Second part of the conference, increase your enrollments. If you increase your enrollments, of course, you have a different stream of monies coming in. And so people have to pay, yes.
Well, how do you go about increasing the enrollment? Is it that the courses, the AI, you're bringing the kind of courses that might be attractive for more people to come? Or?
Yes, that's one of it. But the other things, people have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
When you go to a university, you went to Emerson, right?
Yeah.
One
of the best.
All right.
The best.
And they
remains the best.
And they must say that. In other words, people must come there and say, when I come there, I get the best education.
You get the best, of course.
And so one of the things to do is to encourage people and make it a place where people want to come to because you could get something. I don't really ever understand. Really think about how much money. Yes, but people want to go to Harvard and give their arms and their legs because of what it represents.
Professor, and you would know this, to make it the best and attractive, you had to spend some money. Emerson had started off with just one building.
That's right.
And then they had the Paramount Theater, cafeteria, and library, and so on. But a lot of that money didn't come from the state, right? It came from grants and trust and people who died and they left it. They left it. And you know the same for Wellesley. But we don't have that here. No. That kind of philanthropy.
Yeah. But
just to be, Arthur Lockjack tried that with.
What was that?
He gave a huge, very large donation to what was then the Institute of Business, and then it became Arthur Lockjack School of Global Business, or whatever the name changed. But I used to lecture at the IOB at the time when he.
But it's standing in that place has gone down, right?
Yeah.
It has gone down.
Well, I can't speak to that. I don't know what you're saying.
You're being politically correct.
No. I don't know. I don't know what the fact is.
In that, I'm telling you, the standard has dropped in that due to the same thing. It doesn't have the cash to keep it up. Professor could tell you that you go to Boston, you go to Wellesley, they have a new building, glass and cafeteria, and real.
I want to say one
real
which is
modern seating and so on. That makes it attractive. Arthur Lockjack and the West doesn't have that kind of.
Well, when I lectured at IOB, it was in Tunapuna and Page, right? So moving to Mount Hope was right.
But also, as Professor making the point to Meighoo, that time has passed and it needs an upgrade, which requires a considerable amount of cash to do it. If you don't have it to make it attractive. That's it. Well, Professor, go ahead. You were saying.
Now, the one point I was making in terms of the transition, one of the where UDT is right now.
Yeah.
They began as engineering and technology.
Yeah, that's right.
And in Wellesley, there's a school called, what's that school there in terms of business school?
Is it Brandeis?
Not Brandeis, it's a business
Brandeis.
school. I keep it is number one in entrepreneurship
not
in
Wharton.
the
Wharton
country.
is
Not Wharton.
Pennsylvania.
Not Monster, Wharton. But anyhow, I'll get the name.
Yeah,
It was
I
just
think I
nice
know
strip
the.
me, at any
yeah.
rate. And they began as a business school many years ago. And lo and behold, it started as a business school as we started a technology place. And today, they're the number 2 college in the country, above Stanford and all of those schools in terms of where they've made their changes. And of course, the money will come in the sense that, yes, you don't have the money, but it will come if you feel. That one of the first things I have, we don't have an endowment. You have about 25,000 students. But I'm saying that it can be changed.
And I'll tell you from outside, at Wellesley,
Babson?
what I knew Wellesley for was the Department of Africana Studies because of you and Tony Martin. And so to me, that was the fame of Wellesley. I didn't even know it started off as a business school.
No, not Wellesley. Not Wellesley.
Oh, I thought you said
There's
Wellesley.
another
Babson College
Babson
you're talking
College.
about.
Oh,
But
okay.
Professor,
Let me just make the point before I forget, Gerald. Let me just make the point, please.
I'll give you the benefit. Go ahead.
Babson College began as a business
Yes.
school. And for years, it was the number 1 entrepreneurial school in the country. Within the last 10 years, it's become the number 2 college in the entire country, college and universities. Number 2, Stanford being number 3. The way that's how they've transformed themselves. By just not sticking with, but knowing that change is always possible to move to a place where it becomes so attractive that people, and that's part of the challenge,
But
I think.
Professor, in reality, the Babson, the Wesley, the Emerson, a lot of that change and upgrading to make it attractive, a lot of that cash comes from, people who die and leave the estate or contributions and so on. And the question is, can we really build that here in a society that doesn't give back? Because, just to depend on the state to be pumping cash to build it, a cafeteria, a library, whether it requires additional land, which may not be in the same location, but, somebody passes and they say, okay, we're going to leave 5
we
acres
don't have a
for
tradition of philanthropy like
a
that.
campus.
Yeah.
So I'm just asking, is that really sustainable?
What is not sustainable?
Or can we build it?
That's what you're trying to do. I just give you an example. Again, I got there last year in August, and I said to, I don't want to divide so and so on. Do you have an endowment fund? That's what you're talking about. Do you leave money in endowment funds? He said no. The guy in charge says haughtily, that's a socioeconomic problem. It ain't no socioeconomic problem. You love Emerson. You just came out and said that. I want to tackle it easy. Every year, I give them about $1,500 for the best. Not because I have money, but because they like your school.
Yeah.
And by the time somebody leave Harvard or Wellesley, they give back money the first year, maybe $1,000. In other words, that you must love the place, so you want to give it back. It has nothing to do, and as your social status go up, you give more.
Yeah.
We have had, I could tell you, we have 25,000 people who have graduated from UTT. Do we have any way of raising funds? No, we do nothing.
The alumni organization.
You don't have, in other words, that's what your corporate committee does, or your fundraising committee. You say, for example, we'll go after those people. We have somebody like, say, Marshall. We never invited them back. So what you have to do, which is the difficult part, I know there's not just Trinidad. You go to Howard and those black schools, they don't give back. All those black schools, Howard and Morehouse, they have the same problem. In fact, they're getting money enough from these big philanthropists. This guy from New York, Bloomberg.
Right, yeah.
He gives a lot of money to the black schools and people now real. But black folks generally is not that kind of Trinidad. It's not just Trinidad. But the question is, how do you build it? And why it's important to build that and tap into that and put some money into that, or just use people from our corporate department. You have probably 25 people. Take one people or two persons and say that's your function. That's not much more. That's no more money. And how you do, you get people to get into that habit. But to get into that habit, you must feel proud, as you do, of your school. I give money every year to Fordham. Because when I went to Fordham, I got grants. I was a poor guy cleaning, latrine, not latrine, but not hotels, hospital beds, and working in factories. But I got a number of grants because I couldn't afford. I had nothing, and they gave me a lot. So every year I give them back, and that's what you have to try to cultivate. Again, that's why I think information and not to write it off, and it's going to take a while. But remember, these schools, you go to Sorbonne, 1500, that's about 500 years old. Well, Harvard, 375 years old. They have a long-standing tradition. We're just starting. And how, in fact, do you build that is really the challenge. And the point is that the government is right. You just got to turn us and say, give me all the time. Somebody had to say, hey. And so what we do, even in a small way, it gives them faith. Because all the large projects you're talking about, that we're going to try to undertake, if you don't have an educated population, if you don't have a school, and of course, remember what the UNC has done is said, our manifesto is government policy.
Yeah.
And she has said, in terms of things like heritage studies and all that stuff, it's important. We have to inculcate that. And so therefore, to the degree we begin to do that, I think we become much more compatible. You say, well, they're doing something, they're showing something, they tell us what we're doing, so they begin to have, it's a dialectal, one gives and one understands. And I think that's what we have to move. It's not simply how much you have, but sometimes we don't think you're a philosophical man, you like to read a philosophy, and you
Of
understand.
course,
Okay,
I love it.
all right,
Tells you
brother.
that if the clock is on 10
Okay. And so therefore, I think,
a.m., and you come back and it's on 10 p.m., the time is right. It doesn't mean that the clock is working.
okay.
Because where were you between 10 a.m. and 10 p.m.?
Yeah. So, but what I'm suggesting is that if you do that, you convince them.
Yes.
And that's part of the process. And we have to work. Even in your place, we steal too much of time here. Everybody is thieving time. You want to come and work from 10 to 2 and get your thing and go back. And then they say, the government, but you are the government. That's another concept that we have. Part of the problem has to be education.
Yeah.
You can't thief from yourself. But we are, thief from thief make what laugh?
Yeah.
And we don't have, again, in terms of part of our problem has to be educating the populace. Whatever we do about these cars. You are the guy. You can't thief from yourself. So when you thief 2 hours and 3 hours and you're going home and you're sleeping and then say the government. God laughing, boy. He said, oh God, you should be here.
Meighoo, any final words
Well,
from you
yeah. I mean,
No,
just
you
that
need
we
as
are
to where we are
yeah
and heading at this time?
we are in a process of change, and it's extremely important to understand the bright future ahead. There is a bright future ahead, and I think that the critics, what they try to do is rob us of hope, and that is a very, very, very pernicious and dangerous thing. When a population is hopeless, nothing matters, nothing can succeed. But when you have hope, then even if you have a little, but when you know that that change is on the horizon, and there are big things coming, transformation of energy, transformation of education, transformation of the society, transformation of our infrastructure, transformation of our futures. I mean, there is, and sometimes in the process, we are in a stage where we're cash strapped.
Yep.
But we are moving there.
And this thing about trending now, which is part of the new term on social media. Everything is happening now. 30 seconds, 20 seconds, everybody wants everything right away. So you don't have that longer conversation as to maybe how we can do this and maybe. So everything is just cut short, right? But folks, this brings us to the end of our podcast for tonight, the Public Square. We want to thank you for viewing, and to all the hundreds across the globe who've been following us for the entire night. I want to thank the entire team working with us. Kevan Gibbs, who his name is on the poster, but he didn't make a contribution. Kenny Phillips, as well, who tries to stay out of the politics because he wants nobody to see him. So the people with the belly, myself, Professor Cudjoe with a position, and Kirk Meighoo. All the UNC men. We say yes?
Yes.
Professor, don't say anything. Professor, don't say anything. Stay silent. So we want to thank you, and of course, the Honorable Prime Minister for allowing us for use of the UNCTT.org streaming site. That's one of the big streaming sites. When you go on that, you have hundreds and thousands just watching and listening. And of course, UNC YouTube. We will come back maybe just after all the celebrations of the carnival, where we'll have some other folks with us as well to discuss national matters and to sort of dig deeper in a lot of these issues, analyze it, and sort of bring out a much broader perspective so that people could really get a much broader context as to where the government is going, how things are working, and as Professor recommended, to have a little more communication to the folks out there. But I believe everybody's going to adjust. If the gas goes up, drive less. End of story.
But it went down.
Right? You don't need an ad to tell you if eggs increase, not to buy it.
I thought he was winding up.
Well, that is the
But,
way.
and I thought he was winding
He's
up.
winding you up.
But I'm saying,
So,
let me
that's
say,
it,
Can I
Professor.
say one thing, sir?
Of course
I'm
you
so
can.
close
Of
to
course
the
you
show,
can,
but I
yes.
think, Kurt, a fellow called Jesse Jackson
Yeah.
used to say, keep hope alive. That was Jesse. Keep hope alive. We've got to keep hope alive, but we also have to be in tune with the reality of what's happening.
Yeah.
If we lose touch, in other words, that people are hopeful. That's why they voted for the UNC. We are hopeful. So that's off the table. People are hopeful. I think the critical question is, how do you keep that hope going?
That's right.
That's why I was so thinking about the money and so on. And that we could be futuristic and saying, yes, we know those things are going to happen. But in the interim,
That's right. Exactly. We live now.
in the interim, part of our challenge is to be sure at least we make that presentation
Yeah.
and make people understand, right? That's why I think something like this is so very
And to
important.
be honest and
And
straightforward
that
with
they
you.
know. So when people hear a program like this, have a sense they could now begin to make the connection.
Yeah.
That's why I was so strong
Absolutely.
about the 210. And I think we have to say that. We have to, because people have hopes and expectations. And so therefore I think I'll keep the hope alive. Let's do that. But also try to explain in the interim what some of the challenges are.
And just before we leave, I know we're wrapping up, but on the issue of the Hope Professor, I just saw when Julian John announced that I think it's 1,800 people were
Jobs. Yeah.
jobs
in the
were
ministry.
well, they actually working in her ministry from the jobs fair. And just to go on to the point of hope, I think in the statement, I just kind of paraphrasing, that a lot more is going to come as she continues to go across the
Well,
country,
and-
upgrading infrastructure,
And-
the bridges,
and just to fill
the
that
roads
in,
and so on. So a lot of jobs going to come
That-
in that area as a starter. So as you
remember-
talk about hope,
yeah.
Ministry of Works, yes. Even I
But
want to see
I wanna-
just before you come,
I-
hold on.
because it's contextual.
Yeah,
but
you're not old as coach. You're gonna remember. Because I will forget. Even at our Ministry of Culture as well, during the carnival season, and Mr. Gibbs will know that you have a lot of employment taking place, and the minister Michelle Benjamin, one of the key drivers behind that. You have a lot of employment taking place for people involved in putting up the stages, the lights, just our infrastructure. And when you talk about the small man, all these vendors coming in, it's not just the vendors coming, but sometimes you have transport people who bring in the vendors, so they're making money over it. So it's a lot of tentacles that you have spread out there for people who are employed in this season, and that is in the thousands. Short term, yes, but as you mentioned, hope. I just wanted to
Yeah.
mention that yes, so some people are beginning to kind of see it, some of it working for the season, and we just have to find a way, which of course will happen as we continue to go. So all is not lost in terms of the jobs that are out there. Some of you may not have, some of you may not be feeling it as yet, but it's gonna come one way or the other.
because
Yes,
that
ma'am.
because that 1,800 jobs,
Yes.
and also there's a few hundred in the Ministry of Rural Development. That is part of the 20,000 jobs for the recruitment exercise.
Yeah.
Remember, it was a couple of months ago, and I think there were 80,000 applications received.
Yes.
And each ministry, so
Yes.
the Ministry of Works did that. So they have the 1,800 jobs there, and it's going to go through each ministry, and those 20,000 vacancies in the public service. Well, first of all, that's why the public service doesn't work, because you don't all these jobs are empty, and so what these are stable, permanent jobs, not URP jobs or CPEP that pays you on a daily basis, and you don't have a contract, and you can't go to a bank to get a loan for a car or a mortgage for a house. These are stable, permanent jobs to make our public service run efficiently, to give our people a future.
Yep.
And it has started. And so it started with the Ministry of Works, and it's going down through all the ministries. So this is the process for those 20,000. And then the applications for the international bids for those 29 projects about the blueprints, was supposed to close, I think, tomorrow.
Yes.
But it's been extended because Minister John said that each project has about 5 to 10 bidders for each of the 29 projects, and that is the private sector phase of hiring. So we have thousands and thousands of jobs coming on stream, and we are in the process, and it's unfolding right now.
Yeah, and you have to take risk, and I think a lot of it, it's gonna you're gonna get the dividends from it, but it's gonna take some time.
Yeah.
Even today, I got a call, professor. Somebody called me and said they got an interview with UDCOT for a job tomorrow. I said, well, you're very lucky, because in this banger season, nobody gets a call, but there are certain areas, certain
Yeah.
people are going to benefit. Some people may not, but as you all said, we have to keep the hope. And this, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the real end, the real end of today's Public Square podcast. Kevan Gibbs,
Are you sure?
the big man behind the control, and if we had any cutting off, it's because Kenny is here to make sure that we have the mics working. Mr. Phillips is in the background. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Professor Cudjoe, thank you so much for coming, and Dr. Meighoo, and for all of you out there watching. We'll see you next time. We want to wish you a safe carnival,
happy.
and we want you to come out to Flavor and to the John Cupid Village. For those of you who don't know who John Cupid is, there's some information in our booth, the Ministry of Culture booth there. The man was a walking encyclopedia, knew everything about the carnival. Go read it. It's inside there. So come on to John Cupid, come out to Flavor, and have a good time. That's the place to be, not down on the avenue. See you folks. Have a good night.